My name is Rebecca. I just graduated from college in May, and this summer I apprenticed at a farm in upstate New York through the Saxelby Legacy Fund. In July, I did the 7-hour drive from my hometown in Maryland to a vegetable farm called Star Route, nestled in the upper Catskill region of the Charlotte Creek Valley. I showed up on my first day with 1 pair of hiking boots, an unreasonable number of books, a small suitcase of clothes, 2 tubes of sunscreen, and 3 boxes of family-sized Costco groceries. During orientation, Amanda, co-owner and queen bee of the farm, told me the 2 rules of farm work. 1, move fast, and 2, don't f*** up. Thus, my initiation began. I felt like Daniel LaRusso, except I never had my grand victory at the end of the movie. In reality, I had my butt kicked over and over again by the weeds and by the other farmers, who are all stronger, faster, and apparently infinitely more stubborn than me, which I thought was impossible. But, like the Karate Kid, I felt the slow build of muscle memory as I weeded, hoed, seeded, pulled, plucked, washed, and packed. Instead of wax on, wax off, it was pull weed, move on. Pull weed, move on. Somewhere along that month, fingers deep in the dirt, pants soiled with mud, skin slick with sunscreen and sweat, I began to understand what Bliss. This is Bliss. She's another farmer and a former ASLFer. What Bliss meant when she said that farming is all about intuition, that farming is deeply rooted in the heritage of humanity. And I think about my grandfather, my great-grandfather, the long generation of farmers in my family, and I realize as I stand on the field, my body echoing the crouch of my forefathers and mothers, that there really is something hereditary and deeply human about this kind of intimacy with land. Working at Star Route, it became obvious to me why so many poems and books and grand, sweeping life statements are about farming. Nature seems to speak exclusively in metaphor. I could look at a weed, or volunteer as we like to call them, and somehow see the scrappy, tenacious, indefatigable nature of life married to the delicate, tender existence of the crops that stand nearby, so easily pulled, so easily killed. For both kinds of plants, it's survival on the edge. During one of the beautiful sunset evenings in July, I read U.S. Poet Laureate Tracy K. Smith's collection, Wade in the Water. As I reflected on this month, I couldn't help but think about one of her poems in the collection. The first and last few stanzas go like this. If those mowers were each to stop at the whim, say, of a greedy thought, and then the one off to the left were to let his arm float up, stirring the air with that wide, slow, underwater gesture, meaning hello, and you there, aimed at the one more than a mile away to the right. And if he in his work were to pause, catching that call by sheer wish, and send back his own slow, one-armed dance, meaning yes and here, as if threaded to a single long nerve. And if they could, and if what glimmered like a fish were to dart back and forth across that wide, wordless distance, the day, though gone, would never know the ache of being done.
Falling deeper into the dark, we're caught by the camera light. I think we've been here before.
This poem is called Political Poem. And Tracy K. Smith said she chose to give the poem a dogmatic name and then have the poem behave in this gentle way of effortless mutual comprehension. And I thought about farming, a job where conversations weren't stolen at the water cooler or shouted over a loud lunch break, but where they luxuriated and lazed over hours. Threads of conversations picked up and placed down over hours spent side by side, hand by hand. Conversations about what a soul is, about the best Beyoncé song, about our hopes and dreams and fears for the future, about our struggles with our families and our health, about our favorite dishes and cuisines. We made countless lists together, but Asian food always came out on top, which is a big slay. One day, when a butterfly landed on our carrots during harvest, Francis, one of the coolest, funniest, self-proclaimed intellectual farmers and chicken zaddies north of the city, told me about the Filipino belief that a butterfly is a visit from a dead relative.
In Filipino culture, butterflies and moths are like ancestors visiting.
Wow. If you had to guess, who would you say it is?
I think it's my grandma.
I accidentally threw a carrot on Francis's grandma butterfly a few minutes later, but they forgave me, thankfully. And I think the butterfly was okay. It made me think of those hypothetical mowers and their love and joy for the long, endless day. Through farming, I learned to cultivate that wish for common understanding Tracy K. Smith expresses in her poem. But more overtly, I thought about the poem in the context of the undeniably political work that we do every day on the farm. A couple of summers ago, I conducted research with local farmers in Connecticut about how climate change impacts them directly. I learned that farmers bear the brunt of climate change. Often, they're the first to be hit. This summer, I witnessed that reality firsthand. After a drought in June came a remarkably wet July. Our zucchini crop died after only one harvest because of all of the moisture. In nearby farms, massive storms caused disastrous flooding that destroyed fields and entire crops. When I visited our neighboring sheep farm, I learned that you need 3 consecutive sunny and hot days to cure hay so that mold doesn't start growing. None of the hay this month has been able to be cured. There's this weed growing everywhere in the valley, and I mean everywhere, and it's called giant hogweed. So if you cut these plants and touch the sap, interaction with the sunlight will give you up to 3rd-degree burns and intense, painful blisters. I can't help but recognize the small act of revolution, that as we burn down the world around us, here are these weeds rebelling against our destruction, fighting fire with fire. Last year, Star Route Farm sent 90% of its food to food justice organizations in its mission to address systematic food inequities. Star Route works alongside mutual aid partners across New York City by providing food to food insecure populations and increasing food sovereignty. Some of these partners include Heart of Dinner, which provides food for 1,000 elderly in Manhattan's Chinatown, Nuestra Mesa BK, a volunteer-run food collective, East Brooklyn Mutual Aid, and Delaware Opportunities, a nonprofit serving New York residents in Delaware County with emergency food and economic relief. When farmers can't do their jobs, the communities that they serve are impacted too.
Tell me if you're there. Can you hear me screaming? Tell me if you're there. Can you hear me?
I was humbled every day by the other farmers and by nature, our dependence on it, our awe in the witness of its sheer glory. I learned a million things. I never knew how beautiful rainbow chard is. I never knew that you could eat zucchini flowers and that they're delicious. I never knew when to hand weed and when to use a hoe. I never knew that baby scallions have little seeds in their tips when they sprout. I never knew how much Brutus, our resident wolf dog, liked to be in the middle of the action, no matter where we were on the field. The whole month, William Carlos Williams' famous poem kept replaying in my mind. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater beside the white chickens. It's true. How much depends on the little things, the small moments, the precious images, our food, our friendships, our life paths, all circling around these little happenings and facts of life. On my second to last day working at the farm, I seeded with Bliss all afternoon. When we were done, I put all our newly seeded trays onto the greenhouse table and saw, surprised, that my brand new seeds were right next to the very first trays I ever seeded at the beginning of the month, the Tokyo Bacana. Already, those little Tokyo Bacana, which started out as millimeter little seeds, had grown into baby greens. It felt like a metaphor for my own time there, a reminder of my own growth over the course of this apprenticeship, the ways that I had sprouted, emerged from my shell, and was ready, although somewhat precariously ready, to be planted in richer soil yet. My last day, I went to a fireworks show in upstate with Tiana. It was a beautiful send-off. I was a little worried about the quality of the footage that I took, with my terrible microphone, my non-fancy camera covered in dust, held by my mud-slick hand and shaky arm. But memory is never exact recreation, and I guess that's not really the point. You reflect, record, remember, not to recreate, but to evoke. I'm so glad I have this footage. It's an evocation of the growth, the learning, the loving, the warmth, the fireworks on my last day, the incredible, unbelievable, indescribable food, the deep friendships and soul connections, the hours spent in the book village in nearby Hobart, the softness of the soil on my hands, the feeling of my body at work. Every time I leave somewhere, I somehow manage to lose something. I think there's a part of me that wants to hold on to these places so much that I leave something behind subconsciously, maybe with the hope that I can one day return and find it again. This time, I lost one earring and my water bottle cover. I hope I can come back soon and find them waiting for me. I know I don't have to wait for my friends though, because I'm carrying these new friendships with me wherever I go. Thank you, Walter, Mango, Amanda, Summer, Tiana, Francis, Bliss, Victor, and everyone else in the Star Route family. I love you all. And thank you to ASLF for making the summer possible.
Loving